Welcome to the Oracle GoldenGate YouTube video series. Oracle GoldenGate is the industry's premier multi-cloud technology for building real-time data fabrics, data mesh, and data replication solutions. With class-leading, high-throughput, and extremely low-latency streaming data, Oracle GoldenGate is in a league of its own. Thousands of customers in over 180 countries globally trust GoldenGate with their most important data, and GoldenGate is consistently rated as a top leader for data integration and enterprise data fabrics. One key reason that GoldenGate is one of the most successful integration tools in history is the consistent innovation over more than 20 years. GoldenGate has notched many industry firsts for modern event-driven streaming data solutions. Oracle GoldenGate is first and foremost known for its data event capabilities, including long-time leadership for data high availability, transaction replication, and change data capture. More recently, since 2015, the most successful areas of GoldenGate have been in the areas of data pipelines and stream analytics. Modern technology solutions demand real-time data ingestion, streaming ETL for low latencies, and best-of-breed analytics on data in motion. GoldenGate delivers modern time series analysis in a no-code development package with enterprise-class data governance, including best-in-class data security, data verification, and a rich metadata catalog. Another reason that GoldenGate is so successful is that it is truly a tool for all enterprises, supporting a huge variety of common databases, applications, NoSQL data stores, clouds, and messaging systems in a powerful low-latency data fabric. GoldenGate's modern microservices architecture is the foundation of real-time data events for the event-driven business. With an easy-to-use browser-based user interface and available cloud services for just pennies per hour, there's nothing stopping you from realizing the future today. Try GoldenGate for free. Follow this link for more information. And now, onwards to the video you came for.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this webcast. My name is Julien Testu. I'm part of the GoldenGate product management team here at Oracle. And today I want to walk you through some new capabilities that we've added to GoldenGate for Big Data, which is the integration with Snowflake using a stage and merge approach that we'll go through during this presentation. So today we're going to be focusing on a new exciting connector, which is the integration with Snowflake. Snowflake running on any of its cloud providers, so it can be Snowflake hosted on Azure, on Amazon Web Services, or on Google Cloud. And Oracle GoldenGate, using the big data component, will be able to deliver data into Snowflake using an optimized approach. This is all done inside of our microservices-based environment, where there is a user interface that can be used to quickly, as you can see on that slide, pick Snowflake as a target, create your what we call a replicat to deliver data into Snowflake, and have a GoldenGate for big data basically bootstrap all the configuration settings so that you can get running, in just a few minutes and deliver data into Snowflake. So currently there are like three approaches that you can use to deliver data into Snowflake. Some of them, number one and number two, have been available for some time in GoldenGate for Big Data. The number one is to use the generic JDBC connectivity to deliver data into Snowflake. This is definitely easy to set up, but it may not scale depending on your workloads and your SLAs. So just be careful when it comes to the performance here of the JDBC driver. You can also use Kafka in the middle, basically use GoldenGate to replicate data into Kafka and use the Snowflake Kafka connector or Snowflake connector for Kafka, I should say, to extract the data from Kafka and push it into Snowflake. But then that also means that there is some manual processing that needs to happen in Snowflake to reconcile the change data that is coming in, ensuring that you have the right order, this can be quite complex to set up. What we're introducing today with this new updated integration with Snowflake is the third approach, which is this stage and merge approach, where you're using the native capabilities of Oracle GoldenGate for Big Data to stream the change data into one of the staging mechanisms that Snowflake support. We'll see internal or external stage. And then from there, GoldenGate is going to be merging the data into Snowflake. So you as a user have very little to do. You can obviously, have access to the configuration settings and I would say tailor the integration the way you want. But this is the recommended approach. This is the easiest approach to set up, and the one that is going to be the most efficient when it comes to loading data into Snowflake using Oracle GoldenGate. So in a nutshell, the stage and merge approach, as I've mentioned, is going to be performing what we call an operation aggregation, which I'm going to cover in the next slide, staging the data into internal stage or external stage, and then the data will then be merged into the final target tables in Snowflake. So how does it work, step by step? So first of all, this stage and merge approach is more of a micro batches type integration, which is more efficient than performing every single insert, update, or delete, replicating them, and then performing them on the Snowflake side or on any data warehouse. I would say they've been optimized, for parallel processing and sending change data one by one. It doesn't really make sense. So that's not what we're doing here. We're performing micro batches. But still, leveraging that real-time approach that we'll see. The way it's going to work is the GoldenGate for Big Data replicat that is delivering the data is going to analyze the change data that is coming in, and it's going to perform what we call an operation aggregation, where it's going to basically merge together commands or statements, I would say, that are happening on the same record in a given batch. So the example that I've taken here is that if you have one insert that is followed by 10 updates on that same record, it's going to basically reconcile everything, and instead of sending 11 commands to the database, to the Snowflake database, it's going to send only one, and this is going to yield better performance. And so then once the data has been aggregated a little bit, then it's going to be staged every 30 seconds into the internal stage location or the external stage location of your choice. What is going to be staged are Avro files. We found Avro to be the most efficient data format to load into Snowflake. If you're using external stage, we're going to create external tables for you. You don't have to do it. It's all embedded and done by GoldenGate, automated by GoldenGate. And then from there, the data is going to be merged using merge SQL statements that GoldenGate for Big Data is going to create by looking at the primary keys that are on your target, and then it will run those so that you get the change data replicated into your Snowflake instance. So from a demo perspective, I'm going to wrap up with the demo here. What I've prepared for you guys is I'm using two GoldenGate deployments to replicate data from a Microsoft SQL Server database that is running on Amazon RDS, and then replicate the data into Snowflake. So first, I'm using the GoldenGate for SQL Server service that is running on the OCI marketplace, on the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure marketplace, and I'm going to use it to extract data from SQL Server. What this does is going to create a trail file, which is where GoldenGate stores all of the change data that it captured. This can be encrypted, obviously, very secure, and the extract can securely connect to RDS, in this case in SQL Server, and replicate the data. Then I'm going to send that change data from GoldenGate for SQL Server into GoldenGate for Big Data. For that, I'm using what we call a distribution path in the latest versions of GoldenGate. So this is going to basically enable GoldenGate for Big Data to see that trail file and use it to then replicate the data and deliver the data into my Snowflake environment. So end to end, we're going to make some changes on SQL Server, and then we're going to see those records flowing through GoldenGate for SQL Server and then GoldenGate for Big Data to then be delivered into Snowflake with very little delay and maximum performance. So now let's take a look at it in action. Now we are in the GoldenGate for Big Data user interface, and as you can see, there is no replicat yet, so there is no process to deliver data into Snowflake. So that's something that we're going to create together so that GoldenGate for Big Data can send the data over. What I've done though already is, if we switch here to my GoldenGate for SQL Server user interface, which as you can see is using the same look and feel. So once you learn one, you know how to use all of the GoldenGate user interfaces. Right here, we have an extract that is extracting records or change data from my SQL Server instance that is running on RDS. And let's take a quick look. Let's actually open up the extract, and let's review its statistics, so we can see that there is nothing yet, right? We haven't made any changes together, and I've just started the process, so there is nothing yet. No inserts, no updates, no deletes. And then later on in the demonstration, I'll be doing 20 inserts. This is going to capture them and then send them over to my GoldenGate for Big Data instance. How is it sending them over, those change records into the GoldenGate for Big Data instance? This is done using what we call a distribution path that allows secure connectivity between GoldenGate deployments. And right now my extract, which is extract ext RDS, is creating a trail called EA, and then this trail is sent over to my GoldenGate for Big Data deployment. And on the target side, in my GoldenGate for Big Data deployment, the trail file is going to be called RA, and this is going to be the source of the replicat that we'll be creating together to load the data into Snowflake. So in terms of source, this is all I had to do. Just set up an extract, I'm running it, and it's going to capture changes. Now let's go back to Snowflake, and let's talk about the prerequisites first. So the first thing we have to do is you SSH into the GoldenGate for Big Data deployment. So here it's one running on the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure Marketplace, the OCI Marketplace. And what we've done with GoldenGate 21.3, GoldenGate for Big Data 21.3, is we've added what is called a dependency downloader, and actually multiple utilities that allow our users to very easily and quickly grab all the dependencies that a given source or target requires. So we have scripts to download dependencies for Kafka, for Google Cloud Storage, for Cassandra, and a lot of different sources and targets that GoldenGate for Big Data supports. And for us today, we have the snowflake.sh script, which is what I've used already to download the JDBC driver that we're going to use to connect to Snowflake. And this downloaded this jar file here, which is the latest version of the driver at this point in time. And since I'll need to refer to that file, I've already put the path in here. This is something that I'm going to have to refer to in the replicat configuration to tell GoldenGate where to find the jar file. All right, so that's the first prereq that you have to think about when you're dealing with Snowflake. The other one, here I'm going to use internal stage, so I'm just going to land the data directly into Snowflake. But if I was using external stage like Amazon S3, Azure Data Lake Storage, or Google Cloud Storage, I would have to on the Snowflake side, I would have had to create the external stage configuration, and then once it's done in Snowflake, then I can just refer to it in GoldenGate. The other thing that I've done, which is not a prerequisite, but it's a best practice, is to create a credential to store the username and password that we're going to use to load the data into Snowflake. So, I've created this row here, which has a domain that can be anything. It's user defined, an alias, which is also user defined. So I've used, something called Snowflake_user, and this refers to my actual actual Snowflake username. So I'm going to log into Snowflake as GoldenGate and with a specific password. Everything is stored securely in our wallets, and I will refer to those in the properties of my replicat without having to, specify the actual username and the actual password. I'm just going to refer to the alias and the domain, and then GoldenGate will retrieve the username and the password from the wallet, right, from the credential store. So again, it's best practice from a security standpoint. And then if we go to Snowflake, we're going to target this SRC orders table, and we're going to add 20 records. So right now the max order ID is 139. We'll add records, starting from 140 all the way to 159, and that's going to add, all those records that are then going to be captured by GoldenGate for SQL Server, sent over to GoldenGate for Big Data, and replicated into Snowflake. All right, so that's the setup. Now let's actually work on the replicat. I'm going to click on the plus sign here, and that's the administration server UI. I can create two types of replicats, classic and coordinated. For the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to stick to classic, which is the default. You can use coordinated as well, and you can refer to the documentation to know which one to use and when. And here I'm going to create a new replicat that I'm going to call snow as the the replicat for Snowflake. The trail file that I'm going to use is the one that we saw at the distribution path level. It's called EA on the source. It becomes RA on the target, and again that's user defined. And so that's going to be the source. GoldenGate for Big Data is going to read from the trail file coming from GoldenGate for SQL Server to then replicate the change data into Snowflake. And here where it says begin, by default typically it begins from the position in the trail. Here I just want to start from now. I could also start from a custom time, again user defined, but here I just want to start replicating the changes that happen after I start the replicat, right? So we'll make those changes a little bit later in the demonstration. And then from a target perspective, I'm just going to pick Snowflake in the list. We have a lot of different targets that are supported in GoldenGate, so you can use the list. You can also search and then target any of the different endpoints that you may have in your IT environment. I'm going to click on next. The parameter file is where you specify, as it says, parameters for your replicat. You can parameterize things like the mapping, how the data coming from the source is going to be mapped to the target. You can apply some filters. You can even do some transformations if you wanted to. You have some, I would say, more, options that give you more granular control over what happens. Here, again, it's a short demo just to show you how to quickly replicate data into Snowflake. So I'm just gonna stick to the name and the mapping part, and since I've already set that up before, I'm just gonna use a parameter file from another process that I know works, and I'm just gonna replace here the name of the replicat. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab the change data that is coming from the DB owner and SRC orders table in the SQL Server change data, and this is going to be mapped to SRC orders that is in the schema_2 in my database in Snowflake. Okay, so that's just mapping where the data goes, and you can use wildcards. I could do src star, or I could do star.star to goes to star.star and let GoldenGate do everything by default. Here again for the demo, I only will insert data into src orders, and I want to replicate that into src orders. So keeping things super simple for this quick demo, and then since I picked Snowflake in the user interface, my properties file has automatically been bootstrapped with all the properties that are required for Snowflake to load the data there, and by default for internal stage I really only need this part here, where I'm going to provide the JDBC URL, the username, the password, the path to the driver, that I showed you a bit earlier. If I was using external stage, let's say I was using S3 as external stage, then you can see there are some additional options at the S3 level that have to be specified, like the region and the bucket and so on. If you're using Azure Data Lake Storage, you have some other configuration that have to be provided. And then if you use Google Cloud Storage, then you have these options here that have to be set up. And if you were not using internal stage, but you are using, let's say, you are using Amazon, you can just remove basically the remove the parts that you don't need, and remove the Azure and Google Cloud Storage parameters or properties, and then just leave what you are going to use for in your very specific use case. So here again, I'm just going to use my an existing properties file, because I know this is already set up, and important points here, the JDBC URL, obviously you required to connect to Snowflake. What I told you a bit earlier about the credential as a best practice. So here, as you can see, I don't provide the database username. I just tell GoldenGate, go fetch it from the wallet, and use the alias and the domain that we specified in the credential over here in the configuration. And the username may not be that critical, but the password definitely is. So you don't want to have that in clear text in any files. So this is a best practice to use this function here, and then refer to the alias in the domain. And then finally, just the path to my JDBC driver, and that's it. That's all I need. With internal stage, it's super simple. And I'm just gonna go ahead and create and run this. So after a few seconds, the replicat turns green, and basically the process is set up. Now we can start to make some changes in SQL Server, and we should start to see them flowing through the extract first, the distribution path, and finally the replicat. What I'm going to show you as well is at the file system level in your GoldenGate for Big Data install, you are going to find the R Snow PRM file is there. So this is the parameters for the replicat that we just created together. So you can see the mapping between DBO SRC orders and schema 2 SRC orders, and then we can also look at the properties, which are the ones that we've set up just a bit earlier in the UI with the JDBC URL, the wallet username, the wallet password, and it's all there. What I want to show you too is, I'm doing everything in the user interface here, but I could also do it from the command line or from using REST APIs, because the GoldenGate for Big Data 21.3 release is entirely microservices driven and has REST APIs for everything. So here I'm logged into my what we call the admin client, and I logged into the deployment through the admin client. So if I do info all, now we can see there is a replicat, and you can see I've done it before and there was no replicat yet. So what we've created in the UI shows up in the admin client. And if you're an existing GoldenGate user, you might be using the admin client already, or you might be using GGSCI at the moment. And both of them can use the same commands. And I can do things like stats on our snow. And this is going to give me the statistics. Of course, there is nothing going on yet. So you have a bunch of commands that you can run, and from here I could even set up the processes. So I could also use scripts to automate the configuration of GoldenGate. I can use the REST APIs with frameworks like Jenkins or Ansible to automate the creation of the deployment, the creation of the extracts, the replicats, and manage everything through code, right? Which is always useful. For the demo, I'm doing everything in the UI. It's nicer to look at, but just be aware of those different options that are given to you. So with that said, let's actually run some inserts in SQL Server. So I just fired up about 20 inserts in another screen. So let's go here to our extract, and let's go to the statistics. And now we can see, a bit earlier, you remember there was nothing here. Now we have 20 inserts that have been detected on that source table called SRC orders. If we go to the distribution service in here, I can take a look at the details. and take a look at the statistics, and we have here that distribution path has been running for a longer time, so there are more inserts that have been historically that have been propagated, but there was 64 before, now there is 84. So let's go back to the overview, and now if I go to the back to the GoldenGate for Big Data deployment, and I go to my replicat, I should see that 20 inserts have been replicated as well. And obviously there was nothing before, right? Because we just created it together and kicked it off together. And now if you remember from the slides, that means that change data went from the trails into internal stage that happens every 30 seconds, and then GoldenGate issued merge statements, or one merge statement in this case, to load the data into Snowflake. So right before we created the processes, we had the max ID 139, and now the max ID should be 159. And so you can see here we have those 20 additional records that were just added through GoldenGate for Big Data. Again, extracted from SQL Server and loaded via GoldenGate for Big Data into Snowflake in just a few seconds, and we've created the process in a few minutes. So this concludes the demonstration today. And just to wrap up on what we've seen together, we've used GoldenGate for SQL Server to extract from SQL Server. Then we've created a distribution path to send the data to GoldenGate for Big Data, so that then it could be replicated into Snowflake using the internal stage approach. But of course you can use external stage as well if you wanted to. So I hope that was useful, and thanks again for taking the time to listen to me, and stay tuned for more technical videos on Oracle GoldenGate. Thank you again. Bye-bye.